digital inclusion is wireless hotspots that are checked out from the library, MiFi, so that mobile hotspots can be checked out to individual families. And then the other large piece of what we do is we try to help with training, both for librarians so they can train their staff, and for the patrons that come to the library. Digital inclusion and connectivity is only as good if you know what to do with the fancy new gadget that you have. So that is a role that the public libraries play in the state of Utah. We also provide bookmobile services to rural parts of Utah. We have 7 bookmobiles that travel over 100,000 miles every year to 11 counties and serve residents in locations. I feel like I'm going in and out on my voice here, sorry. And in some of the places where the bookmobile stops, they don't even have internet connectivity in those areas. So they, even though they're trying to bring connectivity to some of these areas, there's about a handful of bookmobile stops where they don't even have access to the internet. They have to do everything manually when they check out books at those stops. So with the state library's presence in libraries throughout Utah, when we started this conversation about digital inclusion and what can we do in this arena, the state library felt like we were a natural partner for that project. And we had an opportunity last year to hire a couple new staff members, and at that time we chose to advertise and fill a position of library consultant for innovation. And there's a couple of parts to that job, and that's Stacy's role at the state library, is that doing some assessment of the technology that is currently available at libraries, and that includes the speed, but also the equipment, and also the ability of staff to be able to use that equipment. We also look at training and outreach needs that are seen in those libraries. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Stacy, who will talk more specifically about the digital inclusion project and where we're going with that.
Thanks, Carrie. As she mentioned, my name is Stacy Vincent. I am a newer employee with the Utah State Library Division, where my focus is much more on technology and innovation. Previously, I was a public librarian with the Salt Lake County Library System, and that's really where my interest in digital inclusion began. And pardon me if I cover territory that a lot of you are already familiar with. I'm going to guess some of you are pretty familiar with the field of digital inclusion. But in the world of digital inclusion, they talk a lot about the 3 legs of digital inclusion. That's device access, broadband access, and the skills to use it. So this group here, you guys have a huge amount of influence over broadband access, which is fabulous because that is a huge leg up when people have access to that. But the other 2 pieces as well, devices and skills, those are just as important because if somebody has broadband but they don't have a device to access it or they don't have the skills to access it, what good is it? So here in Utah, we've been working to form a group around those 3 legs to help address those and help Utah residents gain those things. And as Kelly mentioned, this group does not yet have a name. We're still working on that. But the point of the group is going to be to address a lot of these same things. And so some of the reasons as to why this issue is important, why we're forming the group, that's because people who don't have access to these 3 things, they're left behind. Kids are left behind at school because these days teachers require them to go online to check their grades, access their homework assignments, do research for their homework assignments, even submit their homework assignments in elementary school. They have to use the internet. And let me tell you, when I worked at the Kearns Public Library, I would love to see all of you come and visit the Kearns Public Library after school and see a child try to do homework on one of our computers. It was noisy, chaotic, not ideal. So I'd love to see more of them have that access at home. Jobs are a pretty obvious one these days. 80% of jobs are only advertised online, and they also require online applications. So if you're not online, you're missing out on that. You also just can't participate fully in modern society if you don't have these 3 things. you can't read the news that other people are reading. You can't file your taxes. You can't create content. You can't have a blog. You can't have a website. So it's just really essential, as I'm sure you all know. So why is it important in Utah? Well, in Utah, we're kind of fortunate that we have one of the highest rates of broadband access in the country, but that access doesn't necessarily translate into device access and the skills to use it. So, as I mentioned before, this group is coming together to kind of address these three pieces, and the lady who's kind of leading the charge is named Shauna Edson. She is the Digital Inclusion Manager at the Salt Lake City Library. Fabulous lady. She and I participated in the N10 Google Digital Inclusion Fellowship together in 2016, and that's kind of where some of this started. We used a lot of the skills that we learned during the fellowship to help create this organization, and this is going to be a statewide organization made up of voluntary partners. And just to give you an idea of some of the partners so far, we have the Salt Lake City Library, the Salt Lake County Library, the State Library, Google Fiber, Mobile Beacon, HUD, Salt Lake Housing Authority, Utah Nonprofit Housing Authority, or Utah Nonprofit Housing Corporation, and more. So it's a very robust group. We've got nonprofits, we've got for-profits, we've got government agencies. And if you have anybody who you think should be at that table, please let us know. Kelly can...
Yeah, and I can forward your information to them.
Kelly's been at those meetings, and she's been participating in the process. Did I leave anything out, Carrie? We don't have a name yet.
It's very new.
It's been broadly, the Digital Inclusion Coalition is kind of where we started, but it's like we need a more clever name that has a better acronym than that. So yeah, we don't have a name yet.
But if you're interested, just get in touch, and we'll keep you abreast of what's going on.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they would love to have private partners come to the table. And I think there probably are companies that are interested in doing that. So I'm happy to line you guys up and invite you, if you can just let me know if you want to be on that one. And I'll forward it.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions, really quick? Okay, so our next update. Okay, so we're actually ahead of schedule today. So our next update will be from Gordy Coles from the Utah Communications Authority. As many of you know, Utah has announced that we've opted in to FirstNet, and so he's going to give us kind of an update on what's going on with that.
Okay, welcome everybody. Good to be with you this afternoon. Yeah, as Kelly just said, we've opted in. Governor Herbert opted in on November 6th. We're the 31st state to opt in. We're kind of in the middle of the pack there, but there's not a whole lot of information yet. Talked to Tracy Burdock this morning. She told me we're still under the NDA. Maybe Tara can clarify that a little bit, but I talked to Shay Cook, and he mentioned that I could share the map of the new site builds. I know last time we met, you guys were interested in that. Is that okay? Okay, because I'm happy to share it. Just want to make sure that AT&T is okay with it, because that's kind of what Tracy was telling me this morning, that we're still under the NDA. Can't share too much information. So.
I don't want to give you a yes or a no right now.
Okay. All right. Well,
no.
Yeah, I'm not the lawyer.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go with what Shay told me when we met, that I can show it to you. I can't give you a copy of it, he said, and he would prefer you didn't take pictures of it. But I can show you the map, and you can see where some of there's 16 new site builds that AT&T has proposed to put here in Utah. There's I think there's 5 of them along I-70, which is a really great news for us. I-70 has always been a problematic area for communications, and so this will be good for I-70. And there's several others. And you have something, Lynn? You're frowning over there. Okay. You're squinting. Okay. All right.
It's the old eyes.
I know that feeling. So anyhow, we've opted in. I'll show you the site builds here in a second, if we can plug in somehow.
Do you want me to plug you?
We also, submitted for this, the second round of the SLIGP grant funding, so that we can, so that we can work over the next 2 years with FirstNet and be participate in that. One of the things they told us we could do with that grant money is, as each IOC is completed, they'll allow us to go through into the grant and drive test that area and identify gaps. So we've put into the grant some funding there for the test equipment to do that and to hire somebody to come in and do the drive test. And it's got a BGA for it.
Oh, it's that one. It's similar shape to you.
So we're looking to do that, and then there's other things. FirstNet will be initiating with AT&T, the outreach. We're not gonna be doing the outreach like we did, in the first round, where we were initiating that and coming out to things. And what we're planning on doing with that is, most of you are aware, UCA was reorganized, their governance board was reorganized with Senate Bill 198. So we have a 9-member board in there to advise that board. They've got a radio advisory committee, and that's made up of 19 members, which aren't fully constituted yet. Last board meeting, they added a few, but, the state's broken up into 7 Homeland Defense regions, and they'll have a committee in each one of those 7 regions, and the committee chairs of each of those 7 committees will be on this radio advisory committee to the UCA board. So what we're planning on doing is going out to those committees and meeting with them down in the grassroots level to talk to them about their needs and bring that up to the board, and then we'll be able to articulate that back to FirstNet and AT&T so that we can make sure that your coverage needs are met, that you know, you're getting what you need out of FirstNet. And as far as the adoption and FirstNet selling the FirstNet service, that will be AT&T. They'll be coming out and doing that. We're not going to be doing that. So, but we will help facilitate that, and that's part of the grant too. So there's concerns. You know, we did a white paper. It's called the Cost to Opt-in States. FirstNet, of course, is building the RANs in the states. All the states have opted in, so there's no cost to the states for that. But there's costs involved for managing the devices and the data and the local control, and things like that. So we did a white paper to kind of help the stakeholder understand what each of the agencies are going to be looking at and be involved with in that. There's going to be some costs. There's going to be some personnel that need to be assigned to those things. So we're just looking to use the grant to help with that. That white paper's been completed. We had a company that we worked through called Scientific Applications International to help us out with that. It's about as big as it's going to get, I think. So these are the 16 site builds. Not showing?
No.
I need to.
Are you able to pull it up on, is it web-based? Can you pull it up on mine? Yeah. Oh, there it is.
Oh, yeah, okay. Kind of hard to see it. I don't know if I can get it much bigger than that. No, I can't see it. Technology, right? Always fun. There we go. See if I can duplicate it, if I can get it on both. Okay, now I can see it. We can blow it up here, we can scroll a little bit if we need to. Okay, so up north, there's some sites here. Ones that we were mostly concerned with, when we did our coverage objectives, submitted that to FirstNet a couple of years ago, the state plans came out, and these, along I-70 here, these 5 sites weren't there. We were really concerned with the coverage there, and that was one of our priorities. And so we met with AT&T, and they agreed to build some sites there to help with that coverage along I-70. And these are proposed sites, and they're not, you know, we don't have longitude and latitude yet. They've got to go out and get property and go through all the process of working with property owners to have an actual location. So we don't have longitude and latitude of sites yet, but these are the general areas of where the sites will be. So those 16 sites will help with some spots that are problematic and that we felt like were priorities in Utah. So some states got a lot more, some states got less. So it's just, this is what we got, and this probably within the first 5 years that these sites will go in. Yeah, need some more down there. So it's a 25-year contract, and that's where we say we're going to work with FirstNet and AT&T on this and identify gaps and work with, try to get coverage in where we need it in other places besides these. So, sure. It's a variation. A lot of our sites for UCA, and in fact, AT&T's approached this, and we've given them, they asked for all of our site locations to possibly partner with us if there's any that they could utilize. So we've done that. We've given them all of our sites with longitude and latitude, types of towers, what the transport is, what the elevation is, so that they can start looking at those sites and seeing if there's any that they can utilize. But they're BLM sites or Forest Service sites. There's some private sites that we lease property from, some that the state actually owns. So there's so they're generally pretty good to work with. Their processes and the requirements are pretty stiff. And we've had cases where it's taken us 3 or 4 years to get a site approved on a new site build. We've actually had to go through a couple of years worth of red tape to actually just change a site. An existing site, we wanted to put a new building and a new tower, and making those changes caused a lot of consternation with the BLM. So, yeah.
Gordy, if I could add to this, so I'm with AT&T too, so, this is a process where we got input from, the state's, plan review team. A lot of people at this table were part of that process, and I will say, especially on those I-70 sites, that's gonna be, it's gonna be a hurdle, and Lynn knows this. It's gonna take partnership, it's going to take, cutting through some of the typical, time frames that we've dealt with federal land.
That's good. We have some backing from high up.
Yeah, it's good to know.
We've been trying for many, many, many years to get coverage on I-70. We've tried to work through the carriers, and we just can't get anybody. We just couldn't get anybody's buy-in to go out there and ruin the scenic area. It's a very scenic area, and people are very particular about that. They don't want towers on the horizon. So hopefully we can cut through some of that red tape and get some sites put in. Because we would eventually like to partner and put some LMR sites out there as well. So we can, right. That is a dead area through there. No cell phone coverage through that area, going towards Aurora. Yeah, see that. So that's where we're at right now. I don't know that I have a whole lot more information that I can give you, but, hopefully with the SLICB 2.0, we'll be able to utilize that grant money for some good purposes, and it's a 2-year period. These 16 are new builds, so I don't know that they have to be. This is what they're going to be new builds. The ones along I-70 are going to be greenfield. There's nothing there, so they got to start from scratch. But AT&T's looking to partner. So if you're interested in that, FirstNet has a spot on their website where you can go in and say, I'm interested in doing business with FirstNet. Throw your hat in the ring. Any other questions? These 3. I'm pretty sure that those are full Forest Service. I think they're far enough west of the Forest Service and not west. Forest Service has been a lot easier to deal with than the BLM, in our experience. Line over to Green River. And this didn't pinpoint every single area we have trouble at. There's a lot of places that we need coverage, and we'll address those as we go forward.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and it's good to see that there's, some rural coverage being added by that effort, and that it's covering various areas of the state. And so appreciate working with you guys and with AT&T on some of the conversations that we had to try and figure out the location. Thank you. Okay, so, next on the agenda, we have an update from UEN, and I think we need to have both Ray and Dennis.
All right, thank you. It's good to be here with you. Those of you, I think most of you know us, who we are, what it is that we do with Utah Education and Telehealth Network. And we are the state entity charged with networking schools, colleges, universities, technical colleges, public libraries, and clinics and hospitals throughout the state of Utah. So that's our role and responsibility. We connect nearly 1,600 locations throughout the state of Utah. And we take great pride in the amount of broadband we're able to put into those schools. Our minimum standard is 1 gig of connectivity for our schools, and we're starting to get requests for 2 10-gig connections at our high schools along the Wasatch Front, which is, and then we always look at the utilization of what it is that they're using, and it's not necessarily a wish list, it's actual fact that they are using that much broadband. And so it's exciting to see how much growth we see and how much they really are using what we're providing there. One project we did complete is just recently we did do a 100 gig connection from the downtown data center all the way down to the Thomasville data center in St. George, and we'll continue to build on that. And it's all done private partnership. We put out the RFPs and then we release the fiber from the telcos. It's been a great relationship. I think 2 areas of our state where we have always had it very difficult to get the adequate bandwidth there has been in Daggett County and also down in San Juan County. And those are the 2 areas of the state where we don't have fiber yet. We have some in San Juan, but not to the extent that we would like. And so we're continuing trying to find ways to get fiber there. Now, we've been here on the agenda almost every single time, talking about the frustration that we've seen in what we call the Daggett project. We've been working with the FCC and USAC for 2 years now in trying to get our proposal approved, and we've been getting denial after denial. So this past year, I took my E-rate team back to UT. We had Dave Ryan from Strata went with us. That's who we were contract with for the Daggett project. And we met directly face-to-face with Chairman Pai of the FCC, and I found him to be excellent to meet with, and he was concerned with what we were seeing. He listened, he took copious notes, and I just got an email from him dated December 20. I just want to read it to you to show you what kind of person he is. This is my perspective at least. Hello, Ray. I mean, it's very personal, directly to me. I hope this message finds you well. As I'm sure you know, UETN's USAC appeal was partially approved in a decision issued yesterday. I just just wanted to follow up to say that I'm glad this was resolved, and to thank you and your team for meeting with me to highlight the issue. Have a happy new year. I was just flabbergasted that he would take the time to respond and say, hey, I understand your concerns, and it's been partially approved, and thank you for coming. I think it opened up his eyes, and he comes from a state where ruralness is real, just like Utah, and so I felt he was really quite responsive. We have had to go back and do a little bit of give and take from what our initial proposal was, but we're still ecstatic that we finally have approval to move forward. So I have Dennis and Jeff here with me that I'd like to have them explain a little bit more of where we are with the Daggett project, what it's gonna require to now move forward, and then also what our vision is for the San Juan project.
Just a couple, follow-on comments, and thanks, Ray, and thanks, Kelly.
And you guys have plenty of sense, we weren't.
Oh, really? Okay. As you know, and Strata, and Dave would tell you this as well, we started planning the Daggett County project probably about 7 years ago. We started talking about how can we build fiber from Vanilla into Vernal, from Vernal into Manila, and then even getting across the dam over into West John. We started having those conversations when we started expanding fiber into schools and communities where we never thought it would be possible. And as they said, we were very excited to hear at the end of December that our appeal was granted. The total cost of the Daggett County project is relayed to you with Strata, at least our portion of the project is about $3.3 million. Strata Networks is putting in approximately about $4 million of their own capital to make this project work. And that was a really important point that we were able to make to Chairman Pye, because the FCC is trying to spur investments into rural areas, to spur economic development, and get this critical infrastructure out there for economic development reasons. And so we were able to share that, and Dave was able to share that too, as part of our meetings with Chairman Pye. We're excited to begin the construction of the project this spring. It's going to be about a 70-mile fiber build into both Manila and West John, to the high school and the elementary schools. Dave, I think we anticipate it could be 18 months to maybe a 2-year project, depending on how the construction goes. We know there's always unknowns when we start these projects, but the fact of the matter is that the huge administrative burden of getting the funding approved is now cleared, and so we are working together. And we also want to thank Lynn Yoakum from UDOT, because UDOT is such a critical partner in this project and around the state with everything that UEPN does. She's been fantastic to work with and has helped with funding commitments and planning, and I think that Lynn, we're excited that we can finally get going on this project and quit talking about it. And then Jeff presented recently to the 7-county coalition infrastructure group, and Mike McKee and his group were really instrumental in helping us lobby our congressional delegations. And Jeff's going to talk to you a little bit about our planning on our San Juan County project. We're hoping to apply this year based on the approval we received for Daggett. The San Juan County project we have in 2 stages, and Jeff submitted a handout to everybody, and Jeff can give you some more detail on it. But the first stage of the project we awarded last summer to Henry Telecom. We're hoping to begin work on that project this year. We're going to apply to the E-rate program. The total cost of that project is around $5 million. So we need to develop about $1 million of match after the E-rate portion is funded. And we're optimistic based on the Daggett approval we can get that one approved as well. So Jeff would like to give some background and detail on San Juan.
Provide a little additional detail. We went after San Juan County at the same time we did with Daggett, but we had to take a step back, and we put out a new RFP a year later, and at that point we learned to split it into 2 parts, just because it's such an enormous project with some challenges. It goes through both the Ute-Mountain Ute tribe as well as into a number of chapters of the Navajo Nation. So as Dennis had indicated last year, we did award on the first phase to Henry Telecom. Now we'll be putting together that match so that we can proceed on that. The 7-county infrastructure has been very supportive of that. Emory has as well, and continue to coordinate with others such as Lynn with UDOT and with the counties involved with this project. And so hopefully in one of the upcoming meetings we'll be able to announce that we have filed the application so that we can get in the loop to receive an award for that, project. But we'll keep this group updated as we make progress on, with working with Strata Networks on the Daggett project, and, excited to start seeing some movement in what we can do down in San Juan County. And so, I think that covers it, unless there's, any questions regarding either of those, projects. Technology inventory? I can provide a brief update, and please chime in. So, originally through, Senate Bill 222 that this started with, ETN has been tasked with working with all of K-12 around the state to conduct an annual inventory. We did one 2 years ago. We had 100% response from all K-12, including, all charter schools, and, this year we just completed another. In early February, that report will go before our board, and then we'll begin to, distribute the details. It's nice, we have some longitudinal data that we'll be able to share with this one now, so we'll really be able to see what's been going on in the schools as it applies to, digital teaching and learning, and, our role with supporting the broadband and working closely with, our counterparts on the K-12 side. So excited, perhaps Ray, you'll be able to give a snapshot, in the future of some of the things that we, findings of that report.
Well, yeah, until we actually receive the report, I'm not going to share the details of it, but we could probably share it. We're actually releasing it to our advisory council, this month, so, first week of February.
One other thing, we might mention, Kelly, that, we're working with, Carrie and the state libraries on a wireless filtering bill. It was passed, that Senator Todd Weiler sponsored, and we did a partnership and memorandum of understanding to help, rural libraries comply with the requirements of that new state law. And I don't know if you want to comment briefly on that. That was good.
I should probably comment part of it offline because the equipment's still on order and it was supposed to be delivered in November. But the amendment to the state bill for filtering requires wireless connections to the internet to be filtered in libraries as well as the hardwired connection. So about more than half of the libraries were already complying, but we had 10 libraries that were not in compliance. There was a $50,000 fiscal note attached to this bill, and the solution is going to cost us $75,000. So it almost covered it, but it's been great working with West Ferguson and the staff at UEN to get that ordered and get the equipment and have the tech support from UEN for these small rural libraries that, you ask them if their wireless is filtered, they're like, let me go check, and so it's great to have that support from you guys.
Oh, yeah, Lynn, did you have a question?
Did everybody hear that question? Should we repeat it, Ray? I'm not sure, Lynn, if your microphone is on.
Okay, my question is that, we have been, working really hard down in our school district to look at this, problem of, pornography with, the school system. And we're working to put a program together, and we would want to know what is it that UEN is doing to help this problem. Because in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, especially 4th, that is where parents are telling us that they need help. They really need help.
That's an excellent question. A couple ways that we're addressing that is, we're required, if we're going to apply for E-rate dollars to help connect schools, we have to have filtering in place. So So our schools are all filtered. Anyone that, when they have devices that they take home, they have to have a way of sending that signal back to the district to go through the filters so that they can't just have straight access, to the internet. And then in the content areas, we have the NetSafe program that we provide for the schools, and then we have our professional development staff that work with teachers and showing them how to teach that content and how to access it and all of that, through the schools. And then the students also sign an acceptable use agreement. And so when they go through and want to be able to access the internet, want to have a device issued to them, they sign the acceptable use agreement that says that some of the things they won't do. And most of the schools, when I was a superintendent, what we would require was the parents would have to come in with the students to get the device, and then the discussion would be held about parents don't advocate your role as a parent in having oversight and watching what your students are accessing, and we would show the parents how to access the history and what the students are looking at. So, it's going to be a problem that you just don't want to turn a blind eye to. It's critical. It's been, the research shows the negative effects that can have on students. So we take that very seriously. That's an excellent question.
We have a program that, down in St. George that we have been working with. It's called, I Have the Power. And it's a 5-step program that when kids see something that they are not comfortable with, they sign at the bottom that they will go to an adult and ask. And I would love to bring the program and show you.
I'd love to see it.
Okay.
We're open to seeing any kind of tools or content that would be helpful.
Great.
Thank you.
And we've talked a little bit about having Lynn come to the advisory council and present a little bit more on that. They're not quite at a stage to do that quite yet, but we're still working with them on it. So if we don't have any other questions for UEN, our next quick introduction and presentation will be from Natalie Randall, who is San Juan County Economic Development Director. And they obviously are, looking for solutions in that area of the state. It's an area that we've heard a lot about. And so it was nice to get, some progress on the Daggett project that we've been talking about for so long. And so hopefully that will play into this next step of getting some more connectivity in San Juan County. But I thought it would be great to introduce Natalie. She's pretty new to San Juan County, and we've been in communication quite a bit because this is a very high priority for them. And so I'm just going to let her talk about what they're thinking about.
Thanks, Kelly. So Kelly, I'm just a few months into the position with San Juan County, so it's kind of new. It was perfect timing with the governor's 25K rural initiative for us to put out our strategic plan for our county. And in working with our commissioners, our top 5 initiatives, one of the top ones that came out was broadband. That was based off of multiple assessments we've had come through the county that we haven't really done anything with at this point. But what we found that a lot of the industries that would like to relocate to San Juan County specifically, one of the top priorities that they need is broadband. Kind of additionally, just to go a little bit further to kind of paint the picture, we are coordinating as well. We're part of the 7-county infrastructure coalition that they mentioned with the UEN presentation. So we work directly with them. As part of adding broadband to our 25K strategic plan with our county, the coalition made that one of their top priorities as well. So it's definitely now a region focus to get broadband and get San Juan County lit up, so to speak. One of our big projects that's going on right now within our county, where immediately we have control over our roads and everything, is the Spanish Valley area. If you're not familiar with that, that's just right at the border of Moab and Grand County. That's a brand new community that's being pushed in right now, and that whole area is being ripped up for sewer, water, and all of that infrastructure, and so broadband's a great time right now to potentially look at implementing that into that area, at this time. Additionally, it's been great with GoEd because we've made a lot of connections from our strategic plan. Another connection we've made within kind of the tech industry is through STEM, and with Tammy goes through the Utah network, and seeing where we can increase diversity within our workforce. That's something that we're really looking at, and how we can keep kids in rural Utah. And one of the ways that we've kind of started to explore is potentially looking at telecommuting jobs. And the only way we can do that is obviously with broadband as well. So not only getting it to our schools and to our communities, and we're grateful for UEN and the work they've done there, but also getting it to our homes, and making sure that all of our residents have them as well outside. I think that.
Does anybody have any questions for Natalie about?
Yeah, what do you see, you know, just in the coming year, the things that you may be doing just on the broadband front? We try to work closely with everybody we can, both within education and then also on the telehealth side. We have some activity with Emory Telecom right now, with working with Continental Health System, Health Department, with Hospital. But we're glad to, you know, work as closely as possible. And I just wonder if you have any events coming up, or work that you'll be doing on the broadband front that we may be able to contribute.
Definitely still in like the beginning stages right now of developing a plan for how we'd like to move forward with broadband. But at this point, we're really trying to reach out to our community members and find out what the need is. Within the healthcare industry, I can say the big need is redundancy. So making sure that there are multiple providers and multiple lines in the instance that one goes out and in the process of telemedicine and everything. That's been the biggest voice of our healthcare industry, and they've brought that to our attention. So that's probably initially what we'll look forward with, and then as well as reaching out to the communities. But this is really the beginning stages before having these set plans. Spanish Valley, and talking to our commissioners and even with our roads department as far as other infrastructure, is probably our #1 area of implementing, actually like seeing broadband implemented on the ground at this point. And that's in this year. That'll be happening as far as February, like this upcoming month, March, as far as putting in that new infrastructure, the sewer, water, and pulling up all of that ground and dropping new lines. So.
Okay, well, thank you. I just saw Val peek his head in for a second. Thank you. So we're just waiting for Val. I'm thinking, can we just take like a quick, maybe 5-minute break? I know that we usually don't have a break in this meeting, but if we could have people just sign Bert's picture, that would be great. Actually, never mind, he's here, so we'll just go ahead with that. Val, you walked in just in time. We were ahead of schedule, so do you want to come up here? Sure. So Val agreed to come in and kind of talk about sort of what the future of some of the broadband efforts at GoEd are, and we appreciate him taking some time to just come in and talk about what they're thinking going forward. So.
Well, thanks, Kelly. Just wanted to give you a brief background. Many of you probably know this, but the Broadband Network Outreach Center, I should say, was created as part of the Recovery Act funds in the Obama administration. They provided funds for the Outreach Center, and those funds sunsetted about 3 years ago. And during the session 3 years ago, Representative Handy agreed to run and provide a 3-year extension to this office. Over the last couple of years, we've had some ongoing discussions in GoEd about what the future of this would be. Obviously, this is a legislative creation, and the legislature decided to keep this going. We have had some ongoing discussions in GoEd about downsizing our office. We've kind of added a number of programs here and there, and we've talked about offloading them into other operations. In fact, there's a bill going forward this session called the GoEd Streamline Bill, and as part of that, we had some discussions with the governor's office and others about whether this whether we ought to recommend that this office continue, or whether we ought to have a version of it continue, how it ought to go forward. As we discussed this with the governor's office, the feeling was, let's eliminate the office, let's continue some of the functions that it's doing, but let's go ahead and move the office officially, or at least eliminate the office from GoEd. So, in a conversation I had, a brief conversation with Representative Handy, he came up and said, hey, what's your feeling about the broadband outreach office? I made the comment, I said, well, the governor's office would be to recommend not to renew it, but to continue some of the functions, and he said, okay, then I'm not going to carry the bill. And so we have made a decision that we are moving forward. We, meaning GoEd, would like to, first of all, thank Kelly for the great work she's done. She's been fantastic in this role, done some amazing things. We plan to move forward. We've asked for $100,000 of money for the budget, that we can continue to do things like the mapping. We would like to continue to convene this group and others. We want to continue doing some of those things. We'll just be doing it by, we won't have a full-time person running this operation anymore. We don't know exactly what that looks like yet. This office will continue to function through June, but we will have a person ready, or at least we'll have a system and a process in place to continue to convene broadband, to continue to have opportunities to work with the mapping function and other things that are deemed important. But we won't have a full-time employee in this role. Ginger, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I'd just like to echo Val's comments that Kelly's done an exceptional job. This is bittersweet in that we are really proud of the work that Kelly's done. But we see this role with the Sunset being very rural focused, and kind of have some ideas in regard to how that could work out. It's a little premature into allowing you, or kind of letting you know what some of those ideas are. But we see them continuing on in this advisory committee, continuing on.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna say that I will be working with them to kind of figure out how that transition is gonna work and take place, so. Can you turn on your mic, sorry?
With this, really is quite the disappointment. I'm sorry to see GoEd go this direction, and personally, I don't think this is the direction that you should have gone. I've seen so much come from this.
So we appreciate that feedback. It's always tough to cut a program once it's going. And it didn't come without a lot of serious consideration on the part of a lot of people.
You came down to the Washington County Economic Meeting Summit, and you can see how fast the state, that's an example of what's happening, and it's just going to snowball. And we are way disappointed. I was talking to Lowry Snow, and he was explaining this to me, and we are really disappointed in what you're doing, because you don't have a clue what happens after this meeting as we talk amongst each other and get business put together that your office doesn't do, but you benefit from it. And I'm very disappointed in what you're doing. And you need to know that there's a lot more going on than what you know.
I understand that. I will say this. I've been in 2 public meetings where we've talked about this. We've talked about it openly among agencies and everything else. I have not had one person from the broadband community come up and talk to me about this. Not one.
We're the first we've heard of it, at least.
Yes.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We've talked about it in open public meetings. It's out there, and we've been you all knew this program was gonna sunset after 3 years, or you should have known that. that's just the way it is. And again, I apologize, I told Kelly this. Some decisions are political. And this is partly a political decision.
We'll go to the governor's office.
That's fine, the governor's office was involved in this decision.
And Mr. Cox, the lieutenant governor, was very disappointed. I talked to him down at the meeting about this, and he's very disappointed because he comes from this field.
I know.
And he is gonna fight for us.
Okay, good. He was involved in the decision.
So we'll find out.
I'm just telling you, this is the direction that this is going. I just talked to the governor's office before I came down here. Told them I was coming down to share the news.
I drive 5 hours to come to this meeting from St. George. This meeting is so critical to my business and others. And we rub shoulders and we talk, and we're able to do business here where we can't do it any other place.
And this meeting will continue.
To what extent?
Well, we're gonna continue to have this meeting. I don't have all the details, but we're gonna continue to have this meeting.
Randy Parker with USDA Rural Development.
Could you grab the microphone?
I guess from my standpoint, the timing is a bit troubling because we're seeing the President and the Secretary of Agriculture just elevating this issue. When the President spoke to the American Farm Bureau in Nashville last week, this was one of the items that he talked about was streamlining and getting infrastructure in place for rural communities. In fact, the first chapter of the report to the President of the United States on agriculture and rural prosperity is on broadband and this issue. So I guess, this is my first meeting. I've been in this position for only 2 months. But all I'm hearing about in Washington, D.C. Is the need to connect rural communities. Utah's communities, because of our makeup of our land base, 70% federally owned, 8% state-owned, our rural communities are isolated in a big-time way. This is the way to connect those for the President's vision on rural prosperity. So, Val, I guess the timing doesn't seem really odd to me.
We agree with you. That's why, as Ginger said, she oversees the rural office. This component will probably end up in our rural office. That's where it's gonna end up, because it is a big deal for rural Utah. It's not going away. It's being absorbed into another responsibility. We're eliminating a full-time position. That's what we're doing. It doesn't mean broadband is going away. It doesn't mean we're not gonna convene this group. We're going to do that. We're gonna continue to service broadband. It will just be in a different manner, and it will probably be under under the auspices of rural Utah.
And we won't get these important people here, Lynn Yoakum, UEN, we won't get them.
My guess is if we invite them to come to this meeting, they will come.
And I think, any feedback that you have that you want to forward on, to the governor's office or the decision makers, I think that's, if people feel that they need to do that, then I would encourage you to share whatever you feel like you should share. And I appreciate Val coming in and having the conversation.
This has been about a year in the making, a year of the discussions. Again, we've been before 2 subcommittees in the House and the Senate talking about this. There's actually a bill drawn up by a rural legislator that doesn't talk about just this, it talks about all of the go-ed streamlining. And so this isn't anything that is just happening now. It's been out there for quite a while.
You have any other questions? Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and like I said, if there's feedback that you wanna give to Val offline or to any of the decision makers, I would encourage you to do that. And we appreciate you coming in and addressing our group. And with that, if we could, sign the picture for Bert, and then I will let you know, as plans go forward, we'll let you know sort of how things are shaping up and what things are gonna look like, and I'll let you know when the next advisory council meeting will be, and then we'll kind of go from there.
You know, we've taken years to build what we have here. I mean, it took years. How many years have we been involved? 7? And it takes momentum to get to where we are. And this is gonna destroy it. Gonna destroy it. You don't care?
It's up to you guys. We will continue to have this meeting, we'll continue to have this committee. It's just, it's only as good as you guys and how much you wanna participate. The difference is, we're just not gonna have a full-time person devoted to it. So,
Who cares?